Hello YouTube, my name is Isabella and today I'm going to be discussing some books I would like to reread. I think I've mentioned this before, but before BookTube, before I fell off reading because there was a period of time in my life when I didn't read at all, I used to be huge into rereading. So much so that favorite series of mine I had read 20 times, 10 times. One of the drawbacks of that was I didn't know how to discover like new things, so I just reread old things. But ever since BookTube, rereading has taken a significant step back, way on the back burner, and it's something I'd like to change. And I figured holding myself accountable or making a video about it is one of the best ways I can do so. It's also something that's kind of been brought on because of my TBR game that I've started. Both months I've had prompts to give a book a second chance or reread, and I really have enjoyed rereading said books. I've posted reviews over both the books that I've read. Like, it was an experience I really enjoyed, and it's something I would like to continue doing. Now, I'm not saying I have to have read all of these books by the end of the year, but they are ones that I want to keep on a list. And doing it in video form is like one of the best ways to keep myself accountable, is telling the public it. I'm also making a note of it that there are books that I reread every year, or I have over the past few years, and those ones don't count. I'm talking Pride and Prejudice, talking like favorite series like the Poppy War series, or the Daevabad trilogy. Those books I love, and I reread them all the time, and will probably have reread them by the end of this year anyway. But those aren't exactly what I'm intending for this video. The main book, or trilogy, I should say, that inspired me to make this video, and one I've been thinking about rereading for literal years. I could probably scrub back and look at a bunch of old footage of myself literally since I started my channel saying I want to reread this series. Like, it's time, and I'm definitely making it a point to read it in 2021. That's Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I read these in 2016. Very early on in me discovering BookTube, and loved them. I distinctly remember thinking, wow, if all the books I read like this from like BookTube recommendations, like, I'll never be steered wrong. I love it so much. I binged the trilogy back to back to back. I really would love to see if the trilogy itself holds up, if it's one that I can still consider to be my favorite all-time series, because from me reading in 2016 to 2021, my tastes have changed and evolved so vastly that I don't know if I will still love this series. But I have faith in Laini Taylor. I love her work. Strange the Dreamer, that duology is one of my all-time favorites. So I know I'll still like this. I just want to know, like, if I'll love it still. And there's no time like the present. I have to start. Another trilogy I would love to reread, because it's just been years, and I actually grabbed the whole trilogy this time. It's none other than The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. I grabbed these editions specifically because I'm a nerd and have multiple editions, but I don't even remember the year, but maybe 2019, 2018, one of my goals for that year was to reread like the Shadowhunter books up until like the newest stuff. And I read 100 pages of the first book, which you can see, and couldn't get past it because I just wasn't liking the writing. Now, I would love to read this for many reasons. One, I have dust all over me from these because these are tucked high on my shelves. This series in particular was really formative for me as a kid, but I know there's a ton to critique it, and I think it would be really interesting for me to read it, like, honestly 12 years later, and see how things have changed. I reread these a ton as a kid. City of Bones, holy shit did I reread it. And the trilogy itself I loved. I know there are problems with it, but the characters to me I still love, and it's been so long. I haven't reread them since before BookTube. I think it's time. I think it'll be really interesting, and it could be such a mixed bag, but I'm like morbidly curious at this point. I'm now noticing I've had a lot of events happen recently that have really made me interested in rereading certain things. Another one specifically is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This is a combination. It's sort of a reread and sort of like a new thing to me because as a kid, I never completed them. I was, again, about 12 years old, taking them out from my library, and I got to book 3, and I so vividly remember it because I just couldn't continue on anymore. I couldn't get on board with J.R.R. Tolkien's writing. Like, it was so egregiously descriptive, and 12-year-old me just wasn't feeling it. The past weekend, I went and rewatched the entire extended edition trilogy, the movies, for the first time in years, and really loved it and thought it was such an interesting experience to compare it to childhood me and childhood experiences, because while I never finished the trilogy, the books, I love the movies. So I've like been re-inspired, reinvigorated. I have the photos on the screen because I have no idea where my copies went. I'm going to throw 2 contemporary books on this list because they're books I think about all the time, and I'm going to run through them quickly. The first one being I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I also read this in 2016 and fell in love with it. It's a book I think about all the time, but I have no idea, 0 clue if I will enjoy this now. I don't know if it lives up. I remember the characters and the vague story beats, but it's been 5 years, and it's one of the contemporaries I heralded as like all-time favorites. So I'm so curious to see how I feel about it. It hasn't been something I've wanted to prioritize, but I really would like to reread this in the future and see if it lives up. Another one I would just love to reread because I want to get the significance of it again is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I think this is one of my all-time favorite like contemporaries. But when I read it, I was in the States when my family was at a football game that I refused to go to because it was outside on like December 29th or something ridiculous. So I went shopping and listened to the audiobook and spent my time reading The Poet X. And I was so enchanted and entranced by this story. And I would like to physically read it and like take it in and take my time with it and possibly even annotate it because I just love this book so much. And it's been a couple years now since I've read it, so I would love to re-experience it. The final book I want to reread and will probably reread soon-ish, soon adjacent. That sounds dumb, but that's Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. I read this, it's been a while. Probably, I think, in 2017. I think I like read it on a whim from my library because I was really interested in it. It was getting a lot of comps to HP, which I don't really care about anymore, but you know, it had like a huge bidding war between so many publishers, and I was like, all right, let's see. It's a middle grade story that was really charming, and I really enjoyed it then. I now have the sequel, and I would like to purchase the 3rd book, but I remember nothing. Absolutely freaking nothing. Like the actual contents of the story, like there are vague things I remember, but I just know I need to reread it before I continue on. And I made a point to purchase this copy. I bought it used, so it's a little beat up. It was a library copy from somewhere, but I just loved the edition so much and was so attached to the idea of buying them, and then they went out of print. And now I would like to justify me purchasing an expensive edition of a book. I don't prioritize middle grade enough. It's something I would like to change a little bit, and rereading it never really crosses my mind, but I definitely would love to reread this and just be enchanted and charmed by it. This is so many people's favorite series. I genuinely can't wait to reread this book. Okay, hopefully this video today was shorter. I started to add a lot of stuff on here and then was like, hold on, no. Do a part 2 later on. It's just something I want to prioritize. I tend to not prioritize reading now, especially because I'm trying to get my TBR down. And if I'm spending my energy reading a book I've already read, that's not really knocking my TBR down, but I don't want to be solely focused on that anymore. And it's something I want to take in stride and also just have fun and enjoy the act of rereading, because it's just something I love to do. Let me know down in the comments below some of the books that you would like to reread or revisit, or if you're not a rereader, maybe let me know why. It's something I'm excited to get back into doing. And yeah, I would love to know your thoughts. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.